Welcome to Grow Your Strength. We're going to start our session with breathing. And so taking yourself to a favorite position, face up or face down. Get yourself comfortable. Get your posture lined up. Make any micro adjustments that you need to through your neck and shoulders, your low back and hips. And then start to focus on slowing the pace of your breath and getting the breath nice and deep. This week, I was listening to a podcast on heart rate and heart rate variability, and it came up about how the exhale is the part of your breath that downregulates your nervous system, so your parasympathetic nervous system. And we want to kind of prepare the body for the stress of training, whether it's you feel like this is a low intensity, medium, or higher intensity training for you. It doesn't matter. In my opinion, you just want to continue to focus on the breath so the body perceives this as positive stress and that the overall benefit, net positive of what you're doing. So breath is important throughout the entire training process. So see if you can lengthen that exhale. After your next breath cycle, we'll transition to some knee bends and work on our ankles. Just take some time to wrap a strap around your foot if you like to do it that way, or just have your leg in the air. And we'll go with the knee bends and extends 3 to 5 repetitions of these moves, just based on your speed and how things are feeling. As you extend your leg up, try to get that tension through the back of the knee without locking or jamming your kneecap. And spread your toes, push your heel to the roof. Nice to see you all. Welcome. See some sunshine on you down there, Shirley. You must be enjoying the weather. Yeah, it's freezing cold in Vancouver. You can see the snow. Oh dear. Okay, that's what's nice about the virtual training. It can take me anywhere. Holding the leg up now in an extended position. Open up the ankle by spreading the toes and giving yourself a good amount of movement. Point the toes to the roof, pull the toes down. Change it up to your rolling of the ankle. You can do some rolls with the toes down towards the shin and then work your way up, turning the sole of your foot in and out as you go. Toes pointed. A nice stretch through the front of the ankle there. And then some circles, trying to keep the leg still is always the challenge. Open up those toes. And then we'll switch sides. And we'll go through the same routine, starting with the knee bends. The podcast I was talking about with the heart rate variability and heart rate, the guest was speaking of building up a foundation of cardiovascular fitness through walking, right? And he went on to explain very well that if you go to things that are a little bit more like interval training or hills training or, more difficult, and you don't have that foundation of low level cardiovascular fitness, this is can be detrimental. And it's sort of the same as with strength training. It made me think of exactly the same thing, me saying that it's the consistency to lay the foundation, so to speak, of your joint mobility and of your core. Some of these exercises might not seem kind of joke as sexy as you might want them to be, but done consistently, they do build strength and capacity not to get injured. And so that's where the magic is. Hey, I like thinking of it that way. And so you can also apply that to your walking program. Try to get walks in most days of the week. All right, so now I'm going to go to cat-cow, flexing and extending the spine, taking your time for a moment in the end range of these positions, not pushing extreme. So I've got myself an extension. I've dropped my chest, pulling my shoulder blades together a little bit. I'm just gently looking up, rounding through each vertebrae of my spine slowly into flexion. And take a moment and hang out there. On your next flexion cycle, so when your back is rounded up, try tucking your toes and pushing your hands away from your knees and toes to increase a little bit of that stretch response you feel. And then soften your feet as you roll through extension. And even gently pull your hands and knees towards each other now. See if that changes a little something in the extended position. One more flexion extension cycle, please, and then we'll transition to half kneeling. Supporting your down knee if you need that support, and just take some time to level out your hips. So I've got my hands on my hip bone, just up towards my armpit, kind of feel like I'm level. And then from that position, arms relaxed, shoulders relaxed, just gently pulsing forward, getting a little stretch through the knee and the ankle. Now, if you're if you have the ankle mobility to support this, you could bring your heel in a little closer and try to get a bit more stretch without lifting the heel. And you get a stretch through your thigh. Try not to arch your back. So keep your posture stacked up as best you can. Get a good stretch in there without having to put stress in my back by arching. Here we'll go out to the side. Same thing with the heel. Can you pull it in just a little bit? Knee tracks right over the midfoot. And then after a few pulses here, walk that foot out again, and let's do some big reaches. Just taking some time to extend the fingers overhead, stretching through this whole side. That feels good. I'm just turning my head and gently looking up. Need that like right in there. Okay, one more. How about you? Okay, so let's switch sides. So here's that. If I just put my leg up and I don't think about whether my hips are level, I tend to ride a little higher. Not everybody is like that, but I do notice that with a lot of clients that it does take a little bit of practice to sort of sink into that hip and level out as you stretch, level out before you stretch. So same thing on this side, some pulses forward. Pull that heel in. Taking the leg out, pull the heel in. And then how about the three kisses? Opening up your hand, looking up gently. I did 4. Great. We'll transition from here to sideline, and I'm going to start with the hip circles, or like the sideline hip cars. So as you position yourself, take the top hip and roll forward, bring the top knee up, and slowly bring the leg around, staying in control of your hip. So making sure that you don't go to a place where you feel there's any clicking or crunching. If that's the case, then make the circle smaller. So 1 to 2 circles in each direction, and then we'll switch sides. As I circle my leg back, I feel some tightness in my hip. Remember, you've got to go nice and slow. Feel out what your range is, and couple that with some nice deep breathing. Very nice. Okay, other side. Roll that top hip. Leg. Speed hides need here. So you want to go slow. Otherwise, you just can't get that range you want to obtain. Obtain and maintain. That sounds good. Okay, now let's go into some clamshells. Last week, I don't think I put a band on right away, but I am going to do a banded set to show that progression. These are little loop bands. They come in different tensions. If you don't have a loop band, no worries. We'll just do it without. And we'll start with the knee-only version. So you find yourself back into your sideline position. Feet are relaxed. My knees are brought forward just a little bit. So when I bring my top leg up, I feel activation of all the muscles through the hip. It doesn't look like you're getting the knee very high, especially if you've got your front hip rolled forward. That means that bottom one's tucked under. Then it looks like even less depending on the tension that you have through your band. Okay, so tension up, control the down. 10 of these, and then we'll go right into the version of lifting your knee and foot. This is the second set of 10. Control up. You have your hand here. You can definitely feel all the different muscles working as you lift and lower. Looks great, everyone. Always feel free to modify the rep ranges based on how this feels for your body. If you put a band on and the band is giving you a lot of tension, you probably want to decrease those reps. I've ordered various fabric bands over the years, but I find the fabric bands give me some good tension on the up, but then too loose on the down. Yeah, getting a few nods there. And so I always end up returning to these rubber bands, I guess. And they last pretty well over time. I believe the brand I've got on right now is Perform Better, but I know there's a lot of different brands and tensions available. It's a way to give this exercise and your hip a little bit more resistance, so we get some adaptation. If you're finding the non-banded version easy, then you might want to explore getting yourself one. Okay, so I'm going to go into double bridges with the band, and then give the option to some single leg. So here's another way that you can utilize a loop band. You find yourself in your bridge position. Try to activate your torso by making sure you don't have a big curve in your low back before you lift. So you're not looking to flatten your back completely, but if you have your hands on the front and you just tuck your low back down a bit, you feel the rib cage align, you feel these muscles activate, and then when you come up, you can tighten up your hip muscles down and release. With the band, you can gently push out with your knees, giving yourself a little bit more work through the hips. If you've chosen the double option, you can keep doing that. I'm going to take my band off and demonstrate a few single leg. So fan of both. This is the leg lock version. So I grab onto the back of my thigh. My hand is over my rib cage. And with each bridge, I want a nice level pelvis as I come up. So be mindful that you don't drop or twist your hips. If this is too challenging, go back to the double version. Reverse tabletop position. Okay, so I floated my knees over my hips. They're not too close to my shoulders. Hands above the armpits, and then sink into the floor. Wiggle your hands and feet. Make sure you're not gripping or taking tension there. What about rolling the head as well? Make sure your neck feels nice and loose. And you can start to work your diagonal patterns, pretty much playing with anything that goes here, as long as you're maintaining the posture and the breath. If you need a break, you pull your knees into your shoulders. You don't want to put any strain into your low back, so don't do that extra reach, that bit, like don't do the, let me see if this is too far. That's not a good idea. Stay within your capacity where you can control that breath. Go a little wider, a little east-west, a little north-south, and then pull in again for the break. That's a very human thing, I think, the human condition. Let's just see if this still hurts. Put yourself into pain again. Okay, roll from elbows. Here we go. The elbows are placed underneath the shoulders. Slowly bend one knee, lift that knee up, and then plant the foot, open up. Here you can make sure the bottom shoulder is not shrugged. Gently turn, look down, look up at your fingers, mobilize your neck. Use your vision so that you can be curious with your eyes as you do a few turns and then roll through to your opposite side. Think about quirky things. Sometimes it's like, really, our necks don't want to be locked up and feel tight all the time. So let's just give them an opportunity to gently move. A couple times per side should be enough. And then we'll come to hands and knees, work on our shoulder blades, scapular mobilization. So here I find the middle ground of flexion extension. I'm going to gently tuck my toes and just drop my chest to the floor and try and squeeze my shoulder blades together. This one can be a little tricky because as you push the floor away and spread the shoulder blades apart, often I see people involving their back, their upper back rounds. So find that middle ground, and ideally, you just want to glide the shoulder blades towards the center of your spine and away. Center, drop, down, away, push away. Take a moment to practice that, and then we'll stretch out the wrists and go into a bear hold, 3 to 5 breath cycles. Spread the fingers and make sure you're not just taking the weight in the base of your wrist, so you can load forward, tuck the toes, and just float the knees off a few inches. Then bring the focus back to the breath, nice and deep. In and out through your nose if you can. Making sure you're not collapsing through the shoulders or taking tension through the neck. We'll progress this today by giving you an option to try high arm plank to a lower. So if this is too hard for you, please do another bear hold. So this is part of just thinking about where you're at. Here's my plank hold, and now here's a lower to the floor. Okay, you could put a pillow underneath your chest. And if you still felt like that was too hard, you're just not ready for it, you go back and do another one of these. Okay, your bear holds. Let's go through this again. So depending on your choices, you're going to go to the double bridge, the single leg bridge, or a combination of both. So I'm going to set myself up. And in my head, I'm like, I'm going to do 3 of each. I'm sharing this inner dialogue with you so that you can adjust and modify for your own body. I tend to go a little slower because I'm demonstrating for the video, but also be thinking like 3, that's not going to challenge me. I'm going to need to do 6 or 10, right? So it's not always about the number so much as the quality. So be mindful of that as you go through your exercise. Keep the quality there by keeping your mindset on what you're doing. Try not to grocery shop in your head. Keep the, what do we call this? Mind muscle, the neurology, biology connection. Do believe this is going to get you a better quality move. You'll make more progress. Okay, back to reverse tabletop after your bridges. Keeping the feet and hands relaxed and the neck relaxed is important. So you're not trying to stabilize your core box. So neck, shoulders, hips, spine in here, this kind of rectangular box, by gripping and having tight fingers and hands or taking tension in the neck. So how far you drift, how far you play with this. Make it harder by holding out for a little longer. Right, this is all just building up your capacity. Great job. Once you've given yourself a challenge or 2 with the reverse tabletop, we'll go on to hands and knees again. Return to the shoulder blade move, the scapular mobilization. Do you feel like you're getting some glide even on both sides? And one thing you could try and do is take a moment and take one hand off and see if you can do a single arm shoulder blade glide. So I'm just crossing my other hand and holding my fingers there on my opposite shoulder. This is a lot harder to do. I'll have to check the video to see if I'm straight, but this is what you wouldn't want to do, right? Collapse and lose the plane of your shoulder. So you're really working that stabilization of the shoulder blade and seeing where you're at. Okay, part 2 was a bear and or a plank lower. Okay, so if you want to go right to planks and plank lowers, that's fine. Choose the variation that feels right for you today. Step back, activating the hips a little bit, and I'm gently gliding my shoulder blades together as I lower myself to the floor. So the programming of the scapular work was purposeful. as you progress your strength to become, to be able to do lowers, plank lowers, push-ups, you want to have a sense of that movement through your shoulder blades. So the ultimate push-up doesn't become just an arm exercise. You want to integrate your whole shoulder. All right, well done on all of that. Finish off another rep if you want, and then we'll come to standing and start to do a little work on balance. And then hit up our strength sets today. Starting with the balance work, I've taken away my squishy mat, so I'm on a harder surface. So let's be mindful of that. As you weight shift left and right, open up the toes. Be mindful you're not locking your knee, so it's not a rigid knee. There's a little softness to the knee. The longer you stay on one foot, the more sense you get of, okay, what do you have to do through your ankle, knee, and hip to stay stable? And then let's take it into a little bit more of a dynamic move where you're stepping to the side and trying to balance. Okay, so some of you might want to stay here where it's a little slower, and others could go into a side step. And even harder would be to just kind of jump it over. So you actually leap, or a little momentum that you're trying to stabilize and stop yourself with. Okay, so as I come over in slow motion, I don't want to lose that hip stability. I want to, all those clamshells are going to pay off as you step here. Good. Okay, we'll bring it into some cross-body taps now, a little bit different. Taking some time to bring one knee up right in front of your hip. As you come up, if you've got this pattern, you could try to blink or close your eyes. And here's what I wouldn't want you to do. Lean back and take some stress through your back. So keep your posture floated over your foot. And then there's that knee thing again. So make sure you're not jamming your kneecap to stay stable as you go through some balance taps. Close my eyes for a few repetitions. That's a little unsettling. See how I do with that on the video. Okay, now some balance reaches forward. Okay, so as you extend your heel back, you're reaching your arms forward to a depth that you can control. You can alternate sides. And if you feel like a little guidance from a piece of furniture would help, then reach for something like the wall, or here's my little fireplace. I can take my hands off the fireplace and then work my way back up. Use breath to help support your torso. So as you reach, breathe in. As you come back up to your posture, breathe out. So that intra-abdominal pressure that you create by breathing in below your diaphragm is pressurized, you are going to be more stable. Okay, so here's our strength pairs, squatting for 8 reps, and then a version of a push-up. So whether you are on the floor or you're going to do it from an elevated surface, I want you to be thinking about your shoulder blades. We'll go through this 2 times. So think about weighted squat. What weight will work for about 8 repetitions? You've got options. If you have dumbbells, you could hold them at your shoulders. You could have 1 dumbbell in the center or 1 kettlebell. Once you choose a weight and you find your foot position, you start going in through your squat motion, pulling yourself down to that depth you can control. If you were like, this is too heavy, then don't be shy. Put the weight down. Go body weight today. You know, this is 2 10-pound dumbbells. If all of a sudden I was like, you know what, I'm not really ready for that, I could just take 1. The breath is breathing in on the way down. Exhale up. You want to go to whatever depth you can control without changing the position of your back. So we're not looking for cat-cow while we're squatting, okay? Just pull yourself down. Knees go forward, hips go down. Looking good. Now, what push-up variation is it going to be? Here's a wall version. Step back from the wall or furniture. Got a nice plank position. There's a little activation of my hips, and I'm using my shoulder blades and my arms, but I feel the shoulder blades come together and push away. Now, the warm-up exercise that we did, plank lowers, push-ups, that could be your version now, right? So some of you have a push-up, so you'll come down, set up your push-up, and think of the number that you know you can do well, and try to knock off that number. Be okay if it's a plank hold, a bear hold, or a plank lower. I've seen some amazing things over the years where folks want to have a push-up as a goal, and they just kind of think it's never possible, and it becomes possible. It's a wonderful thing. It takes patience and practice, working at the level, meeting your body where you're at with all these different variations, and then over time, you got it. Back to the squats. Here we go. Nice breath in as you pull yourself down. Come back up. Looking great. Everyone's got some good choices. Feeling those legs working. Little heart rate elevation. You know I'm having a good time when I'm not at all involved in the counting. All right. Push-ups. Show me what you got. Remember to take some time to set up width of your hands, placement about at the shoulders. Great choices. As you go through your movement or your hold, your lower, a little activation of the hips will help to protect the back, right? You don't want the back to lose its posture or sag down. That would be bad. If you're replaying this tape and you want to do more, then just put a pause on and do another set. Okay, moving on to our next strength pair. We'll go with the half kneeling press, alternating with a lateral fly from the up knee side. By the way, this is week 5 of this program. So next week is the last week with this one. So up knee side, I find that half kneeling position again. So make sure you're level. Weight can come to the shoulder. You can tuck the back toe if that feels okay on your knee. Here's an overhead press, and here's a lateral fly. Okay, so I'm going to do one of each, just alternating a few times, nice and slow, feeling out my shoulder. If the weight is definitely in your wheelhouse, then you can go wider, overhead, come back down, right? This is not a challenging weight in particular for me. If I picked up something heavier, I might not want to go quite so wide, right? I might want to keep the bicep a little closer to my ear. So always sort of feel out how it is for your body. Switching sides. Even myself out with the same weight. An overhead press. And a lateral fly. Okay. Seems in the last few months, well, since I've taken the internal strength model course, I've been more thoughtful about both sides of a movement. So when I press up, that's work, but when I pull down, I can make it work too. When I fly out, that's work, but I can also make that work as I come down, right? So we kind of take advantage of different phases of the strength move. And well, I want to say get more bang for your buck, kind of sort of thing. All right, seated band row. If you've been doing this program for the last few weeks, these moves and cues are not new to you, but set yourself up nice and tall. Be mindful of your grip. You want to work your shoulder blades and have grip, but there's no reason to over grip this, right? To squeeze so hard with your hands. You can lightly grip between your thumb and your first finger. You could play with gripping your whole hand or some of your smaller fingers. You could change the width of your elbows. Now we're really working those shoulder blades, right? Good for posture, upper body strength. So the scapular bones are coming together as you pull back and apart as you reach forward. One more time through this set. If your shoulder doesn't feel right with one of these moves, perhaps the press, you could do a shorter range of motion. You could do the press with a fist or just take it out altogether. All right, so modify based on how this feels. Okay, excuse me. Here we go. Pick the heavier weight, being mindful that as I go through, I'm not changing the angle of my body, right? I can control this weight. The weight is not controlling you. Boom. And boom. Looks good. All right. Enough of that. Other side. Find your posture. Level the hips if you need to. Match the reps you did on side one. If you counted. Wow, looks great. We're like synchronized shoulders here. Like everybody's getting in a good mood at the same time, putting a weight over their head. Yeah. Okay, rowing. When you pull back, if you go too far with your elbows, the shoulder just internally rotates. If you get tall and have the tension just right, you can get a lot of work in and just have a nice kind of postural position of your shoulder. So be mindful that you're not pulling back and changing anything. Okay, nice and tall. Build and strength. Okay, we've got our last set, which is our hip hinge and a lunge. And then we finish with Sheila's favorite exercise. All right, so hip hinge. Here's the body weight version. The hips go back to the wall behind you. The back still stays neutral. Okay, you inhale as the hips go back, exhale as you stand up. Some versions could include your dumbbells. Your feet can be hip width or wider. You can still slide those weights down your thighs to your knees or just below, and then come up and perhaps even open the dumbbells at the top, rotating the shoulders gently and getting some shoulder blade. Now, these are not maximal lifts, so you can go upwards of 10 ish reps. If you have something heavier, you might want to lift from the floor, a kettlebell. Maybe you have to elevate it on some magazines or a box so that you don't have to get quite so low if you don't have the hip mobility and the hinge practice to get there. Everybody that I am seeing on screen right now is really dialed in and good. So keep it up. You want to be thinking of this as a hip dominant exercise. So as you come up, there's a little activation in through your hips. Okay, static lunge. This can be body weight or with weight. Take some time to line up your feet, step back nice and straight, get a connection through your back toes. As you drop the back knee a little or a lot, you can inhale, exhale as you come up. If you want to load this up, you would grab a kettlebell or 2 dumbbells or 1 dumbbell. Some things to be mindful of is that the front knee tracks right over the middle of the foot. Okay, so if you're coming down and you're not in control here, just reevaluate the depth and try to drive this right over the middle of the foot and work on gaining the motor control to do this just with some practice. Okay, switching. I'm training in bare feet. Some of you have shoes on, that's okay. But whatever you choose, think about getting some bend in the back toes as you come down. Good opportunity to work on some extension through your back toes. Really important for walking speed, right? We get really tight and locked, especially in our big toe. So this single leg lunge is a nice opportunity to get that toe, those toes stretched as you come down. Beautiful. Let's do these one more time. One of the things that I have learned through my Strong First training, which is our kettlebell certification, is that you can learn to lift heavy things once you have the technique and you gain confidence. So some of you are using some dumbbells and doing hip hinge. You're starting to understand the importance of this movement. Nothing changes when I go to lift something heavy, double 16-kilogram kettlebells. I set my back, take my breath in, and lift up, right? So I think the desire to show you this is that over time, this is a fundamental strength move. My back is not taking double 16-kilogram load through my low back. I'm moving that load through my hips. I'm using my breath, right? Connecting and thinking about what I'm doing. I can safely start to move more loads and get the strength gains and adaptations from that. Doesn't take very many lifts. When you go a little heavier, you wouldn't be doing 10 in a row of your max lifts. All right, let's get the lunges in. I'm going to grab the double 10-pound dumbbells for this. Step back and going up and down about 6 times. Wow, love what I'm seeing. Everybody's making progress. Switching, staring at something will help. Okay, a little bit of that visual for balance. Breathe in on the way down. Exhale up. Work those back toes. Okay, and then we're going to finish today with a get up practice. You can either do a full get up on one per side or modify your get up to where you feel your practice will work. Elbow, tall sit. Nice, Shelly. Tuck those back toes. You got it, girl. Nice. All practice. It's all practice. I couldn't see. It looked like your back toes might not have been tucked. So if you don't tuck your back toes, it becomes harder. You got to use that leverage to get up. Okay. I was so excited watching you guys. I didn't do one myself. Everyone's looking good. Make sure you start the get up with an aligned posture. So no big arch of the back, chin tuck, nice easy roll to the elbow. No stress on the neck. To the hand. As you come through to half kneeling, ding, ding, ding. Remember leveling the hips, tucking the back toes and using them for leverage to stand up. Do you think I secretly train you to be good at a get up? I think I do. All the way down, control, open, hinge to your hand. Make sure you're not in a shoulder shrug. Slowly come down to the elbow and all the way down to the floor. Excellent. Watch a few of you finish your get up, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you for growing your strength with me in the group today.